You're 28, you open Instagram. Your college roommate just bought a house. Your high school friend is getting married. Someone you barely knew just made partner at their firm. And you're still renting, still single, still figuring out what you actually want to do with your life. You feel it in your chest, that creeping panic, like everyone got a memo you didn't receive. Like there's a race you didn't know you were running and somehow you're losing. So you look back at your 20s. What did you even do? A few jobs that didn't work out, relationships that ended false starts, detours, mistakes, and you think, I wasted them. I wasted my 20s. Except here's what nobody told you. You didn't waste your 20s. You were lied to about what your 20s were supposed to be. Somewhere along the way, society sold you a story, a timeline, and it goes like this. Graduate at 22. Get the job at 23. Climb the ladder, meet the person. Buy the house. Married by 27. Kids by 30, life figured out. That was the script. That was the promise. Do these things in this order by these ages and you'll have made it. But here's the problem. That timeline, it was built for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Let me show you why. Your parents bought their first house at 28. The median home price was 3 times the median income. Today, it's 7 times. In some cities, it's 10 times. Your parents paid for college with a summer job. Tuition was $2,000 a year. Today, average student loan debt is $40,000. And entry-level jobs require 3 years of experience that you can't get without an entry-level job. So when you feel behind because you're not where your parents were at your age, remember, they weren't playing the same game. The rules changed, the economy changed, but the expectations, those stayed the same. And that's not even the full story. Because while society was telling you to have your life figured out by 25, neuroscience was discovering something else. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making, planning, impulse control, understanding consequences, doesn't fully develop until around 25. Which means biologically, you're not even equipped to make the long-term decisions society expects you to make until your mid-20s. You're expected to choose a career, a city, a life path before your brain is even ready to assess long-term consequences. And then you beat yourself up for changing your mind, for not knowing, for exploring. But exploration isn't failure, it's development. It's supposed to happen. Your 20s aren't the destination, they're the laboratory. Here's what your 20s actually are. They're the decade where you learn who you're not. You take the job that looks good on paper and learn you hate corporate culture. You date the person everyone approves of and learn you need something different. You move to the city everyone dreams of and learn it's not your dream. And every single one of those experiences that feels like a waste, it's data you're not behind. You're calibrating, you're figuring out what fits. And that takes time. Because here's what nobody tells you about the people who figured it out early. A lot of them didn't figure it out. They just committed early. They chose fast. And now, at 35, they're having the quarter-life crisis you had at 27, except they have a mortgage, kids, and golden handcuffs. You know what that wasted time in your 20s gave you? Options, flexibility, self-knowledge. You learned what you don't want before you locked yourself into it. That's not wasted, that's wise. Let me tell you about Alex. At 28, he felt like a complete failure. Everyone from his MBA program was VP or director of something. Impressive titles, impressive salaries. Alex? He'd quit 3 jobs in 5 years, changed industries twice, lived in 4 cities. His parents asked when he'd settle down. His friends stopped asking what he was doing because it changed every year. He felt like he'd wasted his 20s, like he should have just picked something and stuck with it like everyone else. But here's what happened. At 32, he started a company. It combined everything he'd learned from those wasted years. The marketing skills from job 1, the operations knowledge from job 2, the industry connections from job 3, the understanding of what he actually wanted from all the things he'd tried and quit. At 35, he sold that company. And when I talked to him, he said something I'll never forget. Everyone thought I was lost in my 20s. But I was building a foundation that no one could see. My friends who figured it out early, half of them are miserable in careers they chose at 23. The other half are just now starting to question if this is what they actually want. I'm grateful I didn't commit too early. I'm grateful I took the time to figure out who I actually am, not who I thought I should be. That's the difference between arriving early and arriving right. So let's reframe your 20s, because the story you're telling yourself is wrong. Your 20s aren't about arriving. They're about exploring. They're not about certainty. They're about curiosity. They're not about impressive titles. They're about real skills. You're not supposed to have it figured out. You're supposed to be figuring it out. And here's what your 30s will thank your 20s for. Thank you for not settling too fast. Thank you for taking the wrong jobs, so I know what the right one feels like. Thank you for dating the wrong people, so I know what I actually need. Thank you for living in different places, so I know where I belong. Thank you for trying things and quitting when they didn't fit. Thank you for not locking me into a life before you knew who I was. Your 20s aren't wasted. They're invested, and the compound interest shows up later. Because late bloomers have something early achievers don't: certainty. When you arrive at 35, you know you're in the right place, because you tried the wrong places first. When you commit to something at 32, you actually commit, because you've already done the exploration. When you build your life in your 30s, you build it on bedrock, because you spent your 20s testing the ground. So here's what I need you to hear. If you're 28 and feel behind, you're not. If you're 32 and still figuring it out, that's okay. If you're 25 and everyone around you seems to have their life together, they don't. They're just better at pretending. The timeline is fake. The pressure is manufactured. The race is imaginary. And your worth is not determined by how quickly you get somewhere, but by whether you get somewhere that's actually right for you. So stop apologizing for your 20s. Stop calling them wasted. You were learning. You were building. You were becoming. And the person you are now, the clarity you have now, the self-knowledge you have now, you couldn't have that without the detours. You couldn't have that without the mistakes. You couldn't have that without the time you spent figuring it out. Your 20s weren't wasted, they were essential. And your 30s, they're going to prove it. Because the people who spend their 20s building foundations always outpace the people who spent their 20s collecting trophies. The depth you built, that's permanent. The self-knowledge you gained, that's invaluable. The foundation you laid, that's unshakable. So take a breath. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be to become who you're meant to become. And 20 years from now, you won't regret taking the time to get it right. You'll only regret the time you spent thinking you were behind. So stop racing, start building. Your timeline is yours, and it's right on schedule.